Hello.
Hey Daniel, how are ya?
I'm doing well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can indeed.
Amazing. We'll get kicked off in a minute. We're waiting for other guests to join.
Okay.
What's up, gang? How are you?
Hey, good to see both of you.
Good. We almost at 1 minute, so we get kicked off right at 4:30. So, we can have a neat, interesting conversation.
Looking forward to
Mm. All right. We'll get things kicked off. Hello to the guests who are out in the lobby looking up on this conversation. I want to thank you so much for joining the Twitter booth. Myself, Hermine, and Daniel are here to have a conversation about leadership and how and what their journey looks like. But as well, I'll start off with introducing myself. I'm Raphael Williams, Technical Recruiting Program Manager, who's here building out strategic plans to highlight that experience and highlight opportunities here at Twitter. To get that kicked off, we are looking to engage individuals across all of our engineering org. As you see, we're looking to hire for our technical space and non-technical space. In the technical space, we're looking for software engineers who are interested in working on complex, interesting technologies and problems to contribute to the public conversation. Our product managers who want to work on some really neat features, to starting from whiteboards, ideas, to taking them to market. Or, however, if you want to work on our interface and the user experience in our design and research function, and non-technical as well. Right now, we have a really big hiring need in our recruiting function. However, we also have interest in our sales and partnerships, and as well as our marketing department as well. So that's enough about me. I guess I will kick it off to our amazing guest, and then we'll go into a little bit further dialogue about their leadership experience, and then why Twitter, and all the fun questions that I have dialed up to kick off today. So I'll kick off with Daniel. Daniel, give me a little background about who you are, what team you work on, and how do you contribute to the public conversation.
Sure. So I'm on the back end at Twitter. So my team is the team that provides all of the data processing utilities for Twitter. So it's really cool because we have a huge impact. Pretty much every team that's doing any kind of data analysis at Twitter is using my team's tools. But at the same time, we're kind of offline, so we're a bit disconnected from the actual conversation itself, which is somewhat comforting, right? If our stuff explodes, the users probably won't know for a few days. So that's nice. I guess as to where I come from, I think my claim to fame is that I have now held every role in high tech except for HR and finance. I've done sales, marketing, product management, business development, training, engineering management. I don't know. I probably forgot some in there. Support, professional services, you name it, I've done it.
It's never too late. You want to come over to the recruiting side?
I've considered it.
Amazing. Thank you. Hamid?
Hi, I'm Hamid. I work here at Twitter as a site reliability engineering manager. So that means that the people on my teams are site reliability engineers who do amazing work, and I generally try to make sure that they have an environment where they can do their best. The ways in which we contribute to the public conversation on our teams, we embed with the owners of services. So for example, there's a team called Blobstore. This team holds all of the content you upload with a tweet. So if it's a picture or a video or whatever, we store that in our own blob storage. And the SREs that are like myself that embed with these teams, we're partnered equal embedded with the software engineers, and we help make sure their service stays reliable while they add new features or functionality to it. So we partner up with multiple teams. Blobstore is just one example, and we're hiring. Like I'm hiring too on my teams, as well as like there's lots of stuff that you'll hear us talking about where we're hiring here in general. But I'm like, we really want to encourage everyone to look at the links that Rafael has been sharing for dropping your resume to us. We'll be really, really excited to take a look at that.
Amazing. So that was a lot. So we both work on the back end, and then we work on ensuring that there's no downtime with the platform. That's so it's right. Like two different kind of spectrums of Twitter. So I'm very curious to, and I don't know if Daniel or me, whoever wants to take this question, what technologies do you, or what either scripting or object-oriented programming language do you need to be successful in these roles?
Daniel, you first, man.
Sure. So our team works primarily in Scala, doing functional programming. So the technologies that we're working with are Google Dataflow, Spark, Scalding, Hummingbird, SAR, and a whole long list of other things which you may or may not have heard of. But Scala is our primary coding language. We do some Python, and there is some tiny smidgen of Java thrown in there. Yeah, that's where we live.
Right on. Site reliability engineers, we typically work on Python. It's an easy language for us to help shore up reliability and scale needs. At times, we help the software engineers that we partner with who are doing a combination of Scala and Java. So those are the languages that we have the most day-to-day exposure with. Being an SRE is kind of unique in that you can also bring a bit of your own language. So we have a couple of engineers interested in like Rust and Go. And so we find room in our projects to support that, because people tend to be excited about using technologies that they also are excited about applying those technologies to the work that they're doing. So I try to make sure that we have an environment where we can do that.
Amazing. So I want to dial in. I think I'll ask this question to Hamid. And what is your favorite part of working at Twitter? What brings you to work every day?
Like the people. I mean, without a doubt, it's like from the day that I joined, from my interview process. I just everything has been about how great the people that I work with just are as people to each other. How much they care about the world. That I think that makes sense. It's been a year for me here now, and I've noticed that like the desire to serve the public conversation that is our company's mission. It seems to make sense the more I think about it, that the kind of people who come and work here are the kind of people who rush to serve that type of a cause. And it makes sense those people would just be nice people like that. That's like a really, it's been really, really great. And it's given me lots of energy to keep doing what we have to do. Gives me energy during these times when we're all socially, we're separated, like in terms of physical space. I still feel a good connection with everyone. We still do things to make sure that new people who joining fully, in a distributed form, have a good experience and that they stay connected. I'm well connected with someone who actually, I was just talking to him, just joined our team, and it's really just, it's the people that give me the energy continuously. To love where I work.
I have to agree with that. My team is the same. I sit in the recruiting function. And so we get to recruit all these amazing tweets into Twitter and highlight what our engineering and as well as our non-technical teams do. So I had to agree with you. I love shopping them around and allowing them to have conversations across the business. Daniel, I'm going to switch the question and shake it up for you a little bit different. What excites you about our future? As a leader, you have to be forward thinking with roadmaps and technology. Sure. So what excites you about the upcoming Twitter or the evolution of Twitter?
I'll answer this on two levels. So at my particular team's level, I think we're in technology terms, I would say that Twitter is kind of in the midst of a Precambrian explosion in technologies. There was, if you go back to, say, the early 2010s, Twitter was a major player in creating open source technologies. There was Parquet and Scalding and OAuth and tons of other stuff that we tossed out there into the open source because we were really on the...
Oh, Daniel, I think you're on mute. Okay,
you got muted, Bruce. Yeah.
You got muted.
That was muted. Okay, I didn't do anything to mute or unmute myself, but okay. Did any of what I said come through?
Yeah, just the last part.
Okay, so we were doing lots of great stuff, and then I don't know if you have had this experience yourselves, but if you're at a startup that has just gone IPO, there's this whole thing about becoming profitable, and it's hard. And so there were some years there where Twitter kind of stopped focusing on creating new and really doubled down on being efficient with what they had. And so things kind of stayed in stasis for a few years. And at this point, Twitter's very profitable. We're doing very well. And we've now we're seeing this explosion of technologies as we launch out of that stasis into, hey, we could replace that old thing with this, and we could replace that with this. And I'm having conversations on a daily basis about how do we replace pretty much everything that we work with. So it's a really fun time to be here. And then kind of on the bigger level, on the macro level, I'm excited for Twitter in general. I think we are on the precipice of becoming a much bigger, much more interesting, much more impactful, much more awesome company. I think this is a pretty exciting time to be at Twitter in general.
Yeah, I definitely would agree. I would say, especially with the way they treated their employees through converting from us being in the office to working from home, and that amazing shift and being the leaders in that, and the way our leaders actually treat us as we're evolving and looking at the future of 2021. I have a question in the chat. It says, since Twitter has shifted to a work from home model, why a job location specific? I can handle that. I'll take that one just as a recruiting centric question. Great question. However, some of the roles aren't centric to a location. So if you see in any given job description, it says remote or different locations across US or across EMEA or PAC. Some of our roles, however, are very high touch or data centric roles or data center roles, and you have to be near a data center. So that's why some of those roles are kind of you need to be close to a data center, aka wherever our data center is located. You're not gonna catch me slipping, Daniel or me. I'm not gonna say that where it is, but some of those roles are specific to those locations.
Could I expand further, Raphael? Would it be right if I add some more? So for example, for the roles that I'm hiring, a couple more things that we considered in addition to everything Raphael mentioned is at some point people, the pandemic will hopefully reach a place where people can go back to offices. And when they do, some people have expressed the desire to be able to still go in, to be able to see people. And that model might look differently than it does today. Who knows? But when they do so, they kind of want to know they're around some areas where they might interact with some of their teammates. So, for example, for myself, I found myself listing the office locations where some of the teammates are, so people can know that they can go to those places if they want to. So that when we look ahead further and have a chance to go back to offices, like potentially, then there's a chance to be around some of those same people. But it's all flexible. Like I think every one of my roles says like remote too, because it just makes sense. And all managers I'm talking to, it's very similar thinking that we're very remote friendly, of course, and then we know we can let people gather together if they want to. So it's just like other considerations that we kept in mind. And just to double down on what Rafael said, like I think you mentioned this, but certainly you're not tied to those locations. Like the remote only thing that's there, like that's very, very deliberate. It's been how we operate. We got kind of maybe a head start in our internal thinking around how working distributed would be. So that was kind of I don't want to call it fortuitous because it's like nothing fortuitous about a pandemic. But we certainly we lucked out that we've got some of those operating principles already, and so it's been smooth to work remote. We're going to keep. I'm certainly quite okay with my teammates doing that. So when you look at those, they're not usually hard and bound. And be sure you're checking out how practically all of them, I think, say a lot of them will say that they're remote, and some of them that are bound to physical locations. I mean, it just like data centers, unfortunately, are the cloud. It still has a physical backing. So
a present, yeah.
There's still some of those where we've got to be physically in places.
Awesome. Thank you. Daniel, we get this question a lot, and I want to ensure that the audience has a really good understanding of our interview process. So can you walk us through what your team's interview process a technical interview process looks like at Twitter?
Sure. So I think my team's process is pretty normal for Twitter. So we start out generally once we've gone through the the resumes, and we found somebody that looks interesting and we want to proceed with. The first step is what we call the hiring manager call, where I will have a phone call with them and just do an initial conversation to understand, is there a reasonable match here? Are they interested in what my team is doing? Do they have the experience that I'm looking for? And if that goes well, which most of the time that goes reasonably well, the next step is then a technical phone screen. And so the technical phone screen it's whiteboard coding over the computer. So we have a shared coding environment, and the questions, I mean, it's Silicon Valley standard fare. It's very computer science oriented sorts of questions, and the objective there is really to just understand, do you have the technical skills to back up what's on your resume, right? Do you say you're a coder? Are you a coder, right? If that goes well, the next step is to do a on-site interview, which once upon a time actually was on-site. These days, the on-sites are just as virtual as the phone screens, and it will be done over a video conference. One of the interesting things that we do with our on-site interviews is all of your on-sites will be with 2 interviewers at a time. We pair our interviewers. And that lets us get 2 things. One, it maximizes the signal that we pull out of that interview, and so we have fewer panels than most other companies. If you go look around, typically it's 5 or 6 panels. We typically do 4. But what it also does is it prevents it saves. I'm going to say how to say that. It keeps us from falling into the trap of an interviewer with bias being able to tank an interview. So if you have 2 interviewers sitting down with you, and one of them, for whatever reason, happens to not like the way you style your hair, or really has a problem with the color of your shoes, or whatever it is, that's going to come out because the other interviewer is going to go, no, that person was great, right? So having paired interviewers really does a lot to make sure that we avoid unintentional bias there. Yeah. And those interviews, so we typically do 4 panels. The common across engineering is one of those interviews is what we call top grading, and you can go Google for that. It's a known thing. It's basically 2 managers sitting down with you and kind of talking through what your work history is. One of them will be code oriented, one of them will be design oriented, and one of them will be kind of team specific. And on my team, that looks kind of like it kind of looks like coding, but it's really more around software engineering.
Okay, cool. Me, I don't know if the audience understands, and I want a little bit more clarity on it. SRE is kind of new. I remember when it came out, when Google kind of launched it, and then other companies kind of like picked it up because now it's this new like mix between systems, security, and software engineering. It's like that really cool like medium. But what is SRE? Like, if someone wants to get into it, what are their programming languages? Like, really, like what is it?
I'm actually delighted you asked, because it's kind of fun to explain the role, just because it has the newness to it, and it's a bit different, and I find it to be a very useful role for organizations that want to scale. What SRE does, like, first, what do we do? Like, in a nutshell, focus on the reliability of whatever service we're working on. So if it's like a small part of the service or the overall end-to-end service, whether it's the blob store backend storage, or even the reliability of say, an application and how it's communicating with the backend, how the front end of it is working, like anything you think of when you think of reliability, that's an SRE. What I like to tell people is we have like a lens that we view everything through. So if you're working with a security engineer and you check in some code to a project, all they see is vulnerabilities. All they see is all the vulnerabilities you've just possibly introduced, and that's what they try to help you deal with. And for an SRE, it's very similar. We have a bit of a lens we look through that's about availability and reliability and disaster recovery. And so failovers between two sites, or like if an entire service goes down, how do we recover that service from zero? How would we communicate if we're using part of that service to communicate? Now, what's our strategy for being able to talk? How do we make sure people can rotate in and out of some kind of a crisis we're handling? So we're thinking about those, every aspect when it comes to reliability, like down to its core. How to get into it? I'll say, like you called out, like Google really put forth this model certainly first and loudest, and they wrote a book on it, quite literally the book on it, called Site Reliability Engineering. So one thing is to read up on that, which I did. That actually got me interested into the role. It is something I encourage candidates when they're talking with us on SRE roles. I'll encourage them to read that, because it'll give them the right mindset. It gave me the right mindset to be able to do the job well. That's like a place to start. There's not like a course in university that teaches SRE. So reading that book gives you the mindset to be thinking about availability and reliability and scale and disaster recovery. So the book is one. The second is, if you play with, say, a cloud technology, like there's like free credits for signing up initially with, say, a cloud provider, or if you have friends or some way to do that. Understanding how the components of cloud infrastructure work will give you a hands-on, like applicable way that you can practice of like, oh, I want to have one virtual machine here, another virtual machine here to be redundant to it if I need. You start thinking about the same concepts that an SRE needs in a very practical way, and that stuff's super useful where we are today as we look to go further into using cloud environments too. That gives you like framing with the book, hands-on practice with something like a cloud technology.
Cool, awesome. This question about researchers, I will answer that in a minute. Let me see if there are any questions from the audience.
In the meantime, let me just jump in on the SRE thing and say that some of the most impressive back-end engineers that I've ever worked with started out as SREs, because you build that mindset. And yeah, when you're dealing with massive scale distributed systems, reliability is something that is everybody's job. So the engineers that have that kind of beaten into them at an early age tend to do very, very well.
You see so much what can go wrong, and you're always thinking about it. Then when you pivot into, say, exactly, like a back-end engineering role, you've got the battle scars to remind you, okay, I better build this thing right. So that has been super, super useful. And I already know, Daniel, at some point what's going to come up between the two of us eventually, in some way, open source is going to like work its way into this conversation like it did it's done for us before. So Daniel and I have,
Oh yes.
hung out before. So we kind of virtually, of course, in these days. So like, I'm sure that's going to come up at some point. If anyone's got open source questions or topics, yeah.
So I have a question. So this is an event that's focused on African American, Black, and Latinx engineering as well as non-technical. I want to shift the focus a little bit to really figure out how do you build sense of belonging on your team? What does that look like on your team? And I don't know who wants to take that question first, or if that's a stomp, we can take a break. But I don't know who wants to pick that up. Pick that one up first.
I'd love to.
Okay.
There's first thing that I do is I bring myself to it as openly and as vulnerably as I can be with the team, because I want to make sure everyone feels that when we're working together that they can belong, that they're in a place where they're welcome. So I'll talk about things like why certain issues matter to me so much, and like what's gone on in my life that has informed the way that I think about things. And I try to make sure that people can know that, so they can feel comfortable sharing about it and talking about it. So just bringing myself just authentically and openly and transparently to it, like that's one of the first things. And I'm of course ever mindful is everything on our team being set up in a way, and I can't take credit for it too much, just because it's a lot of Twitter's culture that we've done things to be equitable. So an example of this is there's mentorship and there's sponsorship. Like you might mentor someone, and I do that both in the context of work and kind of outside of it to be useful to people that are earlier in their careers and from backgrounds that are of underrepresented minorities. And I just want to be useful to that. So I find that mentorship important. And there's a difference that our team talks about between that and sponsorship, where sponsorship is that when that person that may be coming from a background that may not be represented as well in tech, and we want to make more opportunity there, we sponsor them. They're not in the room. We say, well, so that person can own it. Why don't they step in and present? Why don't they like get out of the way and make some way for them? And so very, very deliberate, very, very intentional, very, very open. It's important to me for my personal reasons that we do that well on our team. And so I set the example myself. I bring myself to it. You find that ends up attracting very like-minded people to do the same thing.
And on top of what Hamid said, completely agree with all of that. Plus, Twitter is the most amazing place to work as an individual that I have ever encountered. It is a unique experience for me in my career, and I've been doing this for a really long time. I'm older than I look. One of the things that really impresses me about Twitter is that from top to bottom, there is a real sincere desire to make this a place where everyone wants to work, where everyone feels welcome. Right? When we say that, so we say this all the time, that we cannot produce a product that is going to facilitate the global conversation if our organizations do not reflect our users. Right? If you've got just a bunch of white dudes building the software, they're building the software for white dudes. And Twitter gets this top to bottom, in and out. It's not a program that the HR department is running that 6 months out, or every 6 months somebody sends an email and says diversity is important. Right? Diversity is important every day here, and you see it. It is absolutely built in, and it is fabulous.
I've been at companies where they were at a 5, like on a 1 to 10 scale. They were kind of at a 5 and went to like a 7, which is great, like in recent years. And Twitter is a place where it's like been at a 7, going to it at an 8. Like it's just always been ahead. It was one of the first companies that was out there saying, look, we want to help with the inclusion and diversity, with making sure we have a representation, like you said, Daniel, that the group of people working here emulates more of the population we're trying to serve. And the disparity is so big in tech today that we want to make a statement and do that. And not everyone. I remember when like some years ago, this was somehow new for people, and Twitter was one of the first companies that I remember reading about out there saying, you know what, look, we can't solve all of it. Let's start somewhere, anywhere, somewhere. Where's the biggest disparities we can find? Okay, well, for example, Black and Latinx, like these, like huge disparity. Okay, clearly everyone can agree that's got to be addressed. And what I like so much about Jack is his desire for focus. And it's like, all right, let's focus on 2 or 3 key areas where we can make a difference. And I think Twitter is doing that in the combination of Black, Latinx, and women, and saying we will make those groups the biggest disparities better. That I cannot overstate how important that was to me in my decision to join. Is seeing that early leadership in the space, and it kind of keeping me honest and keeping me like, all right, am I like, why did I not come up with that first myself? I mean, it's just like, it's so obvious in hindsight that we have to do something, pick something. And then I remember working at a company at the time who then emulated that stance afterwards. And that was like, yeah, these things, they matter. They make a huge difference. It's not just to myself, it's to the team that I work with, to everyone that I work with here. And it's impressive to be, and it's humbling to be at a place where that's a priority. It's not just an afterthought, like you said, Dan. It's not just an email or 2 per quarter. It's like our BRG programs, so business resource groups, where we have communities of people that are supporting each other in these different areas, ranging from people with perhaps a disability, or people from a certain gender or ethnicity. So it's like, parents. I mean, everything. Really, really like actual stuff that happens in these BRGs, like real change that I can see in the way that hiring is done. Like everything. It's just like it's best. I can't think of I don't know of a better place doing it than Twitter is.
Okay. All right. Hopefully no one
If you
hopefully no one challenges you about that in the chat. But however, if anyone wants to know more about our diversity and inclusion and equity efforts, please don't hesitate to click on the link that I put in the chat. It will give you a little insight into where we're trying to track for our 2025 numbers and female identified representation, as well as how we're tracking towards our current demographics within our organization. Hey, Mark, how are you?
Hi, good. Just wanted to make sure I knew how to get here, and I'm here. I'm supposed to be here in an hour, so cool.
All right, well, I will see you in an hour, unless you want to stay and join the conversation right now.
I might just listen a little bit to get the sort of thoughts flowing correctly in my crazy head.
Okay, cool. I'm going to put you on mute.
All right, thank you.
All right. So that was pretty deep, and I thank you both for letting me know, giving me insight into how you're tracking on your teams, how Twitter's also tracking as well. So let's shift the conversation to something a little bit funner. What's your favorite Twitter handle to follow and why? You can't say Jack. You gotta use somebody else.
Okay, well, I'm gonna cheat one team. I like the jokes from. I can't say. Oh, it's not okay.
No, okay. No Twitter handles. No Twitter. No. Try to cheat.
Then it's got to be Wendy's, because fire. Like really, really good.
They're very petty. I love it.
Yeah, so for me, I am a real nerd. Like I was born a nerd. I am a proud card carrying nerd. And so my favorite follows, I'm reviewing them right now, tend to be on the nerdy side. Really love following Tim Bray. If you don't know Tim Bray, he's the guy who created XML. He's really interesting follow. I just passed one a second ago that I thought was really interesting. Oh, Eric Lang. He's a board games designer who created the there's a very popular one right now. It's about the Viking afterlife, Blood Rage. He's the guy who designed Blood Rage. And he's awesome. Like he is really stunningly awesome. especially if you're a dyed-in-the-wool nerd like I am. The other day he tweeted, he started a Magic game, a Magic the Gathering game on Twitter, and he just tweeted out, first play, these are the cards I lay down. Lay down a swamp, tap it, play a whatever. And and people just picked it up and ran with it, and he had 40 games of Magic the Gathering going on simultaneously, spawning off of this one tweet. It was
I
just
swear,
really,
I
really
feel like
cool.
you've done this before with me, and every time that I leave you, I have follows are because I never know. So I appreciate that. So this is a leadership panel, and so I want to know what was your trajectory to get to a leader? How did that look? And anything in between that you want to cover? I guess we can go from there. Who wants to start?
Yeah. Mine's a very long story. Hamid, you might have
I'll do it. Yeah,
I
have hopefully simpler. It's embarrassingly simpler. Probably. I started off just. It's probably just my own stubbornness. Like I started off doing engineering work as an individual contributor, and I liked my manager. I just would wonder sometimes why certain decisions happened the way they would or wouldn't. And I thought of things I liked, and I thought of things that I saw that could maybe improve from a managerial perspective. And then I thought, oh, I should put my money where my mouth is, or my time where my mouth is, so to speak, and try it out and see if I'm actually, if maybe it's just harder than I think it is. And it was at first. Like I had a hard time with learning that my focus wasn't just to be the best engineer, but it needs to be to create an environment where every engineer that I'm working with, that I serve, can do their best work. That actually the model, the organization chart is actually drawn upside down. It shows the CEO at the top, and everyone is actually the complete opposite. I work for them. I make sure that they have whatever they need, that they're unblocked so they can work on the most exciting things that they want to do. I take care of all the stuff that's around that. The like I said, unblocking, getting access to permissions to things, creating some clarity out of maybe some directions we have to go take. So I just ended up taking what was my desire for seeing something better, and then stepping into it and trying it and figuring out, luckily, that I really like it, and it gives me a lot of fulfillment to have other people be successful around me. So then it just stuck, and that's just. And I will admit, I of course I've had people be really, really kind to me and teach me so many things along the way, and so I make it a point to reach around and reach back and do the same thing, because because that's just what needs to be done.
All right. So my long story. So back in the 1990s. So my undergrad degree. Oh, we lost Raphael. I scared him away. My undergrad degree was hardcore nerd. I was going to come out as the world's greatest programmer, and the problem was I had this desperate need to work for Sun Microsystems, and at that time they didn't hire undergrads.
I'm curious what not to tangent you, but what got you into Sun at the time?
Because Sun was the kind of the poster child of the new age, the internet, the new and cool. My high school had a Spark station, and you'd go in and bow before you logged on. It was a big deal. So I desperately needed to work at Sun, and unfortunately they weren't hiring engineers. So I actually ended up in sales, and spent 5 years in sales at Sun before I managed to transition over into engineering. Now, the problem was I got to engineering. It was great. I was coding finally. I was doing what I wanted to do at the company I wanted to do it. But then it turned out that I was already tainted by sales. So I already had this sense of, okay, I'm writing code, but what else? Writing code isn't enough. I need to be doing more. I need to be interacting with customers. I need to be thinking bigger picture. And so I didn't feel like code was right for me. And so I started looking at engineering leadership at that point. And my manager at the time told me, "Oh God, it's horrible. It's the worst thing ever. It's you're just dealing with everybody's problems all the time. You'll hate it. Oh, I really don't think you should do it." And so he managed to dissuade me from it and sent me off onto a long path of self-discovery where I went through product management, business development, marketing, training, until I finally worked my way back around to engineering and finally into engineering management. And I was right in the first place. I shouldn't have listened to him. Engineering management is a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. I enjoy the bigger picture approach to solving problems. And I enjoy being part of the success story of other engineers. I like up-leveling my team and seeing them succeed in places where they hadn't before. I think that's very fulfilling.
Amazing. Amazing. All right. Well, sorry, y'all. My internet went out. I don't think I've been at home too much, and I probably need to extend my bandwidth. I don't know how that works because I'm not an engineer, but I apologize for leaving and coming back. So we're going to get ready to wrap up in a minute. But I want to leave Daniel and Hamid with their last remarks if they have any, and then we'll tap out.
I just want to say I'm thrilled that everyone here has been able to engage with us. You matter to us. Please take a look at our roles, and we look forward to the chance to speak with you. Do that resume drop that Rafael shared, and yeah, thank you for the chance just to hear us, and we hope that you'll consider our roles and apply and come work with us.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for everybody or thanks to everybody for coming out. Twitter is hiring hard coming up. We're going to be looking at doing a lot of hiring. So this is a good opportunity to get in a company that is growing. It's like I said, Twitter is a unique experience. Never worked anywhere like it. I highly recommend it. Come give us a try. My team's hiring as well.
Amazing.
To bring in about
thank you both for joining us today. Thank you for the audience for coming by to hearing our amazing dialogue about diversity, equity, and inclusion, about leadership roles, and also about how to progress through the technical stack and being a software engineer, and also what SRE is. We will be here later at 6:10 with some non-technical recruiters, as well as university recruiter LeJarn. Hit him up. He loves spitting the ones and twos, as well as we'll have some more software engineers and program managers here to answer your questions. So don't hesitate to come back. We'll see you at 6:10. And before that, don't miss Nakia, who is our head of design and research. She'll be speaking at 6 o'clock about her amazing leadership journey and how that has impacted how she guides our research department here at Twitter. Thank you and have a great night.